We have a couple of different folks out there, and Jim, as we saw earlier, is in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and Kristen Dodd is located in Gulf Shores. And we're going to go to Jim first. And Jim, tell us a little bit about what you've seen there today.
Well, Sharon, folks here in Pascagoula can rest a little easier. I'll start off by saying that, as we are on the western side of the storm right now. So that's the side you want to be on for the least amount of impact. But as far as today is concerned, we've had nearly 6 to 8 inches of rain here in Pascagoula locally, with these kind of squalls that have moved on through, and the locally heavy winds that we're getting right now. Ooh, this is the biggest squall that we've seen in about 3 hours, no doubt about it. Needless to say, there has been some loss of power. We have reports of some low-lying flooding, especially inland a little bit, where we've had some of the heavier rain that's been sitting there for a while. But other than that, not too bad here in Pascagoula so far. Behind me, you can see a big Navy ship. This is Ingalls shipyard, which is one of the biggest shipyards here in the country that builds all these big Navy ships. And you can also see how the clouds are racing off toward the south, so they're racing offshore. We're probably experiencing the western eye wall and probably some rain fade right now. Let's see how it is on the eastern side of Danny as we go to Kristen Dodd in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Kristen?
Well, right now we are in the midst of one of those outer rain bands that sweeps around the storm, and we are getting some very heavy rainfall and also some very strong winds. After spending 3 hours in the eye wall of the hurricane while we were in Louisiana, we decided to head to the Alabama shore to possibly experience those hurricane-force winds all over again. And here's what we found when we pulled up about a half hour ago. Take a look at the ocean at this time. We have some very, very strong surf, and that is just being blown in by the very strong waves pounding the beach at this time, and beach erosion is sure to be a problem as we head through the nighttime hours. Now, so far, we have not had any reports of any damage, but we have been seeing some of the ditches begin to fill up with water, and we do expect that flooding will become a problem later on tonight. This area is under a voluntary evacuation, and it's a very tourist-type place. In some of the folks are taking advantage of that, others are not, and some folks are taking the storm actually pretty lightly. About 10 minutes ago, we had a couple who was in the jacuzzi, kind of trying to make the most of a bad situation. I've also seen some people out swimming in this surf. Not a good idea. It was a very dangerous and deadly situation. Back to you, Shannon.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kristen and Jim, and we'll be going back to both of them live as we work our way through the evening. Stu Ostro is now furiously working away at the very latest advisory, and Stu, maybe you can tell us some of the differences between what we are seeing now and what we had just about 3-4 hours ago.
Well, as far as the information on the advisory, the top winds, maximum sustained winds, are still near 75 miles per hour. The pressure has dropped a couple of millibars, which is consistent with what we saw from the Air Force Reserve reconnaissance a little while ago. Hurricane warning remains in effect from Grand Isle, Louisiana, to Destin, excluding New Orleans, but I think an important point to be made here, as they do make in the advisory, the National Hurricane Center makes in the advisories, warnings could be extended to cover more of the western Florida panhandle later this evening. And given that the motion really during the course of the day and going back through yesterday, if anything, has not been due northeast, it's been maybe more east-northeast, the longer that occurs, the farther east that it tracks along the coast, because it's just sort of brushing along the coast.
And the longer it may be over open water, perhaps the better the opportunity that it might strengthen a little bit?
Yes, given that the pressure is continuing to drop, not extremely rapidly, but still nonetheless it is dropping, and that combined with the fact that it's looking fairly impressive on the radar and satellite imagery suggests to us that there is the potential for at least some additional intensification.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a peek then at the hurricane warnings and the scenes. What it looked like a little bit earlier around Venice, Louisiana. That's where these pictures were taken, where Hurricane Danny made landfall around 7 this morning. Heavy rain caused flash flooding, and hurricane-force winds created dangerous conditions. Power lines and trees, as you can see, literally snapped. And we're getting reports of some very heavy rain as the rain is continuous. This is a slow-moving hurricane, so there is the capability of seeing perhaps upwards of 10 inches or more in some of those Gulf coastal states. We're going to go now live to Jim Cantori, who is in Pascagoula, Mississippi. And Jim, tell folks who are just tuning in now what has been happening there throughout the day.
Well, Sharon, it seems like every time you come to me, you also cue the weather here, because once again, we are in the middle of a pretty mean squall. Winds near 50 miles an hour, potentially a little bit greater in gusts, and also some very heavy rain. I'm out here on the point in Pascagoula. You can see the shipyard behind me, but what I wanted to show you was the cloud movement. The clouds are moving off to the south. So we are on the western or northwestern side of the storm right now. And that's good news, especially if you're concerned along the beaches for any type of storm surge. Because as we pan out now over the water, you can see how the water's being blown away. And there's actually no waves. I mean, there's literally no waves right now in any kind of breakers whatsoever as the water is being blown offshore. So this is actually what they call the safe side of a weaker storm. But now, as you've been mentioning, Sharon, the potential for dealing with the heavy rain is definitely upon us. The worst side of the storm, folks, we always tell you about this, is that eastern eye wall. Potentially, Kristen Dodd is in that. Let's go to Gulf Shores, Alabama for the latest. Kristen.
That's right, Jim. We are just southeast of you in Gulf Shores, right along the coastline. And at this point, we've had a break from some of the wind and the rain. But take a look at what is coming. Right over my shoulder, you can see the very dark and very ominous clouds as they are quickly moving on shore. And just offshore, we are going to get pounded with some very heavy rain. We can really just see it moving toward us. Now, in contrast to where you are, we are getting some very heavy surf here. As those winds are blowing on shore, we are seeing the waves really being kicked up, and we do have a possibility of beach erosion and also a slight possibility of a storm surge problem here. Some of the hotel owners are not renting their lower floors to anyone because they say that anytime they get a storm like this, they are flooded out in the lower levels, and they are pretty sure that that is going to happen as we move through the nighttime hours. So far, we have not had any reports of any damage, but we did have a report of a tornado just west of here in Mobile County. But so far, we have not heard if that actually did touch down or if we had any damage associated with that. Heavy rain will continue to be the problem later on tonight, and we're also going to see our winds pick up considerably. Sharon, back to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kristen, and thanks, Jim. We'll be checking in with Kristen and Jim as we head through the evening, and some interesting pictures there out of both locations where you can see what's going on now.